I would still slightly favor FanTaSy because I think, you know, it's been a while since he's come out here, and he's been in that house that we were talking about. He's been practicing with all the really, really, really strong Protoss players in his house, and I feel like he's going to be prepared for this matchup, but we're going to have to see. We just got to look at Super and his stats. He was 9-7 so far here at Pro League.
When you have players like Parting, Classic, Paralyzed to practice with, it becomes pretty easy to get ready for a match like this. You can see all these stats of FanTaSy for Pro League in the past are pretty incredible. He's played more games in Pro League than Super has played in I think probably his entire career, and that's not including individual league wins.
Yeah, and you can't just brush over that, because the amount of times you come out in the booth, it just makes you more and more comfortable, and it gives you more and more experience, which just makes you have a better chance, makes you feel better going into the booth, and makes you more ready for these games.
I may even want to go as far as FanTaSy has one, not even total games, but one more game than Super has played. So let's jump into this third game. It's definitely a game that Super could take, but a lot of people are going FanTaSy's way. This could decide everything in our very first match here for round 4.
LTA는 SKT1.
Down here in the bottom right in the teal for MVP, it is Super.
Yep, Super definitely better in the PvP matchup than this one, but it's not a terrible one for him up against FanTaSy here. Responding at the top of the map. And you can see here, just FanTaSy fan here. He's known as the terrorist Terran in StarCraft 1 because he would terrorize his opponents with vultures and other sorts of harassment with dropships. So, you know, in this world that we live in now, like in StarCraft 2, like in the current StarCraft 2 sphere, especially the Korean one, FanTaSy is just not. He's disappointed people a lot, but he's not actually really gotten the results people have been expecting from him.
Yeah, he's a guy, like you mentioned so many times before, in StarCraft 1 has done so well. And a lot of people are waiting for him to really reach his, get into his stride and just, start going up and winning a ton of games. But he really hasn't done that so far. He's kind of just been there, you know, kind of mediocre, kind of mid-level. Definitely a really, really strong player, don't get me wrong. But still, a lot of people hoping, you know, to see a little bit more out of this guy. Yeah,
he's a big fan favorite. A lot of people really wanted him to be in Code S and be on the top of Code S, just like Flash. But it seems like his individual leagues for StarCraft 2 hasn't been, you know, as impressive. You compare FanTaSy to Flash, though, overall, and Flash has been much more impressive, at least in team leagues. So FanTaSy is just a Terran player that was really good at the end of StarCraft 1, was the last Terran finalist in Brood War, in fact, but hasn't really done anything too spectacular in StarCraft 2 just yet. And I think it's unfortunate for FanTaSy fans that that's the way it's been so far, but you know, he's still got time, and I think part of the reason why he's struggled to adjust as fast as some of the other Terran players who switched over from Brood War is because he was literally practicing StarCraft 1 up until the very end of the last OSL, StarCraft 1 all the time, right? So if you take that into consideration, of course he's going to be a little bit behind.
Yeah, that's the big thing. You can't focus on another game if you're practicing for another one, and we see that out of FanTaSy here, but hopefully we get to see him play a little bit better. We're seeing him go for the Reaper build. Of course, very, very popular build. He's going to send the SCV as well. Maybe want to try to block this this Nexus from going up, and he will start that now. Yeah, and this just makes the Zealot have to finish. You know, if he doesn't have the SCV here, then he can just skip the Zealot, cancel at the last second, get a slightly faster Nexus. At least he has a probe here too to stop even an eBay block from starting. SCV pops into the main base now to scout. He's going to get a general idea of what's going on before the Reaper comes in, and as far as I can tell, he's not making any more Reapers, gets a faster command center up at home, and has that reactor coming down here as well. Yeah, even starts a bunker just to be sure. You know, you saw the Zealot, he's like, okay, I may need this bunker. Starts that just to be safe. Yeah, and almost kills the Zealot there, bring it down to very low hit points. So an investment on the Super's part just to make sure he can get a Nexus up, but that doesn't even really help him in any other way.
In fact, he may even start losing some more hit points on that. It's not very well protected here. Gets a little bit too far away from the Mothership core.
Yep, starts to lose even more and more of that health, and he's being micro back. He is going to save the Reaper, not going to lose to the Mothership core, of course. But now back at home, he's got the reactor on his barracks, making 2 Marines at a time while he does get the CC up.
Well, this is a really cool tweak on the build that FanTaSy does. He just makes only 1 Reaper. And if you do this, you're taking up a little bit of a risk when it comes to scouting, because your Reaper might get eliminated. But at the same time, you know, if you're actually able to see what's going on with 1 Reaper, your reactor's faster, you're safer against any sort of pressure that comes out because your Marines are faster, your Marine count's faster for pressure, and you know, it's just a save on the gas, which also helps him get this faster +1 for infantry that he's researching right now. Yeah,
and we see, you were talking about the scouting, the 1 Reaper is going all the way across the left side of the map. He even sends out 1 Marine to use because he doesn't have that 2nd Reaper. He's going to scout, you know, the area to the east of his base just to be totally safe. FanTaSy right now just wants to be totally safe and make sure that nothing weird is going on with Super. No 4 gateways on some side of the map. We've seen that at the creator sometimes. Doesn't want to see any of that, just wants to be safe.
Well, the Observer coming out here lets us know as spectators that he is planning on playing a longer game, planning on playing a macro style, at least for a little bit longer on 2 bases. The 2nd Observer makes it pretty clear he's intending to take a 3rd. But he's not going to be doing any sort of fast Colossus push off 2 base, or even, you know, more commonly a fast Immortal, or even a Warp Prism drop with sentries. He's just going to be playing it pretty straight up. There's the Robotics Bay to help him secure the 3rd. There's the Forge coming up to help him get the upgrades. And so far, pretty much standard play out of Super. This is kind of how he likes to play the matchup, and very Creator-esque, very Rain-esque Robo build here to get the expand up.
Yeah, I like it. You know, take this map. It's pretty long. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to kill the Terran right now. Just take it back, be, you know, safe, be standard, get your economy up first, and take it to a long game. Get those Storms out, get the Colossi out, get your AoE to deal with all the Terran bio units, and just take it in that game. We've seen Super do it so many times, and we're seeing it once again. Now, the first Observer is going to come in here, and if FanTaSy is paying attention, you may be able to see that little blur on his map that does tell him that the Observer is there, but he has not moved those units just yet to kill it.
Saves the Reaper here again. Turret over here going to help against DTs, and also if the Observer gets too close. Yeah, I don't know if he sees the blur or not. He may just be making a conscientious decision like, all right, you've already seen everything. I don't want to spend a scan right now. I'd rather get the money for the mule. But this drop that's coming over here, let's see how this actually gets done. So you can actually pick up the Stalkers. Okay, I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. He's probably just going to do this when he thinks the Terran is moving out, because FanTaSy could have already moved out to be aggressive with some Marines. I think he's just going to park it over here. When he sees the Terran move out, he's going to drop it.
And look at this. The Reaper actually survives for a little bit longer. Is going to come in here. Doesn't see much, though. Does survive for a little bit longer than normally if he would have killed it and micro those Stalkers, but does get killed.
Yeah, he's setting up over here for that drop. Observer is cleared up right now. Puts 2 Zealots on the Warp Prism, so at least he can have those instantly there. Should he decide to warp in any other units, he'll at least have +2 on that. You know, say he warps in 4, he's got 6. He's actually even going to go up to 4 in total. I like this choice a lot because that way you don't have to worry about the phase time where you're warping in. Maybe your Warp Prism gets sniped and you lose everything. So a little bit safer.
And here's that second Observer you were talking about. There was even a third one that's seeing the entire army move out of the base of FanTaSy. He does have some units, though, here, and he has to pay attention. He's going to focus on the Warp Prism, and the 4th Zealot doesn't even get out, and now these Zealots are going to kill maybe, you know, a couple of SCVs there, but definitely not worth it there for Super.
No, not worth the cost. These Marines get stemmed over here, though, and they don't actually fight anything. I guess he was maybe hoping he was going to get that Colossus. That was a pretty big stem here. And now, you know, +1 armor is complete, so he's got 1/1 upgrades to the +1 armor only, and he actually decides to run away because he knows a lot of his units are a little bit weaker. If the Terran army, you know, is cornered here, if he tries to chase, and he might try to pick off a Colossus, but things are looking pretty solid for Super right now. You know, albeit his 3rd base is late, his tech is in a very good spot. One of my concerns about him is the upgrades, which he does now add a 2nd Forge. He's very aware that he's behind in upgrades and wants to catch that up. And he is getting Blink, so he's going to be able to shut down drops, but it's not quite ready yet.
Yep, it's not ready yet, and this is going to decide, you know, how much damage is he going to take right now. He has to be so good with stopping all of this harass, all these drops from going down. If he takes too much damage, it could really put him in a world of hurt here. FanTaSy bringing 2 of his medevacs over here to try to drop at the main base while bringing the army of Super out way wide to the west there.
He's doing the little ridge pick off here where you can try to find a gateway or a pylon on the edge. And if you can find that, you just use the medevacs for vision and avoid the melee units, the zealots and the stalkers. Sometimes you can outrange those. With a Colossus here, though, and no real structures on the edge, he has to kind of go in there. He doesn't see anything. And honestly, so far, FanTaSy hasn't really gotten a whole lot done with the investment he's put into this this attack. The important part, though, to note is they didn't lose anything. So had he lost something, this would be a terrible situation for him. But because he keeps it all alive, it's okay. He could just fly home, and it's still army that he's got to defend and also attack later on.
Yep, he's going to fly home. He's going to get that Ghost Academy up. Just wants to be ready for, when the High Templar come out, or you may want to, pull some SCVs and go for a 3 Ghost timing. We've seen that a lot before. A lot of different players, especially Byung. I think he did on this map even.
Yeah, we have seen on this map out of him, in fact. You're exactly right. Now, those are those 3 Ghosts. +2 is going to finish. He's got a few Vikings coming out, which will have +1 probably about the same time that attack hits. I'm thinking we may see that timing with the 3 Ghosts and the SCV pull. And with those 3 Ghosts, you just EMP that Protoss army, eliminate about half the hit points when you knock down those shields. Eliminate any High Templar, and there's the pull. Your prediction is correct, Brennan. Here we go.
That is a huge amount of SCVs. The big thing for Super here is that his observers are on the right side of the map. Okay, there are some SCVs over there, so he is going to have a decent idea that this is coming across if he was paying attention to that. So Super knows what's coming his way, and he has to be totally prepared for this.
Yep. All right, here we go. SCV is getting at the front. Very important for that to happen. Oh, no. FanTaSy actually giving a little bit of extra time here. The Ghosts actually sent over in a medevac to make sure they get here as ASAP. And here come those Vikings now starting to shoot down those Colossi. Super with a time warp here. It's going to buy him a little bit of time. There's the overcharge on the Nexus as well. He saves his Colossi, but needs to start doing some damage because the gap is being closed. He's running out of room real fast here.
The time warp, it doesn't do much. There was no fighting going on, but very good force field there. Split up that army really, really well. The Ghost, they go for that EMP. The probes are pulled now. Is it enough, though?
Well, that's a good question, man. The Vikings are really critical here. I don't know if he has enough to deal with those. The last of the Colossus falls. The EMPs, I have to say, were a little bit late, and I'm not sure that FanTaSy should actually be fighting underneath this Nexus cannon here. Too many Immortals. I think Super's done it. I think he holds here. With now only 27 SCVs to FanTaSy's name, that's going to be it. I think he just didn't EMP as well as he'd like to, and the force fields were stellar out of Super. He doesn't have enough units. He's like landing his Vikings right now. Not looking so good here. I think Super is in a very solid place because he has now about to be the better upgrades finishing up. He's got another round of Warpins, and every time another round of Warpins passes, he's got the economy to pay for that.
Yeah, and we're seeing now FanTaSy, after committing so much to that attack, he's like trying to group up some more units here at the front and try to go for another follow-up attack. But we're seeing the army of Super just multiply in numbers so much right now. He's got so many units right now, and even a blink forward, he is so confident in this.
Yeah, and he's just targeting down the medevacs one by one, so these units can't retreat. Zealots on the front doing so much damage, and that is it. MVP is going to take their first win today. FanTaSy does fall, and this is why I was saying Superman, because sometimes FanTaSy just does not get it done. It's not like he's a bad player, but the lack of results, it shows, and Super has been showing a lot better games. He's impressed me a lot more this season. Even looking back at his GSTL results, this guy is no joke. Yep. And he will beat you in a PvT if he's very well prepared.
He shows that so far he's the only MVP player here in round 4 to stick up to one of these SK players and really give them a run for his money, because that was some really, really fantastic, safe, solid play out of Super. I have to say FanTaSy, what he was going for was a good idea. We've seen a lot of Terrans go for this kind of pull with all the SCVs and a lot of, mid-game harassment. The harassment barely did anything, if anything at all. And then the pull with the SCVs, there were multiple mistakes during the pull that didn't really pay off for him. And also, like we mentioned before, the force fields and where Super fought, right next to his Nexus, even pulling the probes was very, very nice as well.
Yeah, just doing everything at the right moment there. There was one Ghost that was caught behind the force field, and it had like 105 energy. The observer clicked on it, and that Ghost, I think, was set queued to hit an EMP, and the force field kind of bugged that out, so it never went off, and he never reset it. So the Ghost was like constantly trying to EMP one location that it couldn't quite reach. And there was another EMP that hit like 3 Zealots. That didn't really hit a whole lot else. I saw that, and I think those 3 Ghosts that you go for, that's the key of the timing. Of course, the SCVs help out a lot too, but with those 3 Ghosts, you have to get good EMP